Hey, Captain Zhang, don't you think Ailao Mountain is really strange? I never believed it before. Today, I've learned my lesson. We've gone around here 3 or 4 times already. Back and forth, it's still this same tree. Before he could finish speaking, a slightly choked up voice was heard saying, Captain Zhang, we won't be unable to get out, will we? Captain Zhang, walking at the front of the team, stopped. Then he turned back and glared at the teammate at the very back who was still grinning cheekily. Then he sighed and comforted them, saying, Don't worry, it's not like this is our first time taking this route. Nothing will happen. Everyone has been walking all day and must rest here first. When the fog gets lighter, I'll find a place and see if the RTK has a signal. Then we'll see whether people outside can come in and meet us. Time rewinds to November 2021. 4 professional geological survey set out from the western side of Yunnan's plot number 6134 deep in Ailao Mountain to carry out a special survey operation. But 8 days later, when rescuers found them, the bodies of the 4 team had forever lost their warmth. This was the genuine Ailao Mountain missing persons incident of 2021, which drew widespread attention online. This incident also brought Ailao Mountain back into public view. Today, let's look back together at that year, that month, and that silent primeval forest to see what exactly happened there. Before that, let's first briefly understand what kind of place Ailao Mountain actually is. In Yunnan, based on its terrain features, it can roughly be divided into eastern and western parts. The east is the eastern Yunnan Plateau, mainly highlands. The west is the Hengduan Mountains, full of high mountains and deep valleys. Ailao Mountain lies between these two major terrain. So Ailao Mountain can also be seen as Yunnan's geographical dividing line between the eastern Yunnan Plateau and the Hengduan Mountains. And the last mountain range called a geographical dividing line was the Qinling Mountains. So you can imagine how dangerous Ailao Mountain is. This 450-kilometer mountain range has a forest coverage rate of 94%. In addition, the mountains contain a large amount of magnetic minerals, which can easily cause people inside to lose their sense of direction. On November 13th, 2021, 4 geological team members traveled from by car to Zhangpan village at the foot of Ailao Mountain to enter Ailao Mountain from there for field work. The workers were Zhang Jinbang, Yang Min, Liu Yu, and Zhang Yu. Judging from their resumes, all 4 team members had extensive fieldwork experience. So the claim made by some netizens that the personnel were not professional and that this led to the tragedy should not be true. Let's look at the equipment and supplies they carried. The supplies included 1 RTK positioning device, a forest compass, an entrenching tool and shovel, paint, gasoline, disposable raincoats, and about a day and a half of dry food and bottled water. These supplies were also enough to handle an ordinary field operation. Finally, there was their mission. Their mission was also very simple. They only needed to go to plot number 6001, which had been marked by other surveyors last time, and use RTK to locate it again. That was all. According to the previous workers' experience, this mission could be completed in 6 hours if fast, or 9 hours if slow. So, this mission was not equipped with a satellite phone, nor did they hire a local guide. Of course, we also cannot rule out the possibility that someone in the team had taken part in the previous operation. At around 9 a.m. on the 13th, the 4 team members agreed with the driver to meet at La Yong Tang at 6 p.m. Then they headed for plot number 6134 to carry out the assignment. But at around 1 p.m., an accident occurred after the group reached the mountaintop. It suddenly began raining on the mountain, and from here, they were still about 1 kilometer away from the work site. So at this point, the team members contacted the driver at the foot of the mountain. They told him it was raining on the mountain and that they might even have to spend the night there, and asked him to wait longer at the pickup point. This also explains later why the driver only chose to call the police around the afternoon of the 14th. As for why I say the accident this time was the rain, I couldn't find the weather for Zhenyuan County on November 13th, 2021. But in Xinping County's weather forecast, there was light rain on the 13th and moderate rain on the 14th. The 4 team members' worksite was near the border between Xinping and Zhenyuan, so the weather should have been more or less the same. Also, rescuers later said that on the 15th, it was still raining when they entered the mountains. As for why I say it only started raining after they reached the mountaintop, that is also simple. From the surveillance footage of the 4 team members buying supplies, it can be seen that they were not wearing raincoats. People outside were not using umbrellas either. If it had already been raining before they went up the mountain, I think the 4 team members definitely would not have chosen to go up. Let's return to the incident. After the 4 team members ended the call with the driver, the rain may not have been very heavy yet, so the 4 of them wanted to see whether they could complete the task before the rain got heavier. So they continued moving toward their destination. Who would have known that the farther they walked, the heavier the rain, the 4 decided they had to build a shelter from the rain, and they started a fire there. But who would have known that a few hours later, the rain would become heavier, and wind and fog would also rise on the mountain. They knew this simple shelter could not withstand the worsening wind and rain. Seeing the sky getting darker and darker, they finally decided to walk back in the direction they had come from, to see if they could find a place that could provide shelter from the rain. Just like that, they began walking back. To prevent themselves from losing direction, they also took out the mechanical compass they carried with them. But as time passed, the more they walked, the more something felt wrong. Along the way, they could not find any traces of the route they had taken when they came. At that moment, that they had ultimately gotten lost. And more importantly, their phones were almost out of battery, because they had been using them for lighting. On top of that, after passing the mountaintop, their phones had had no signal the whole time. That by then, they had already left and entered Shuitang Town in Xinping County. Most importantly, the 4 team members still had not realized that the reason they were lost was that by then the compass had already failed due to the magnetic field. But as we said earlier, all 4 team members had served in the military. Even after realizing they were lost, they did not panic. Instead, they took out the paint they carried with them and began marking the route along the way. Then they followed the downhill direction indicated by the compass and continued forward. Just like that, they kept walking until they reached the area near the site of the tragedy. But at this moment, the 4 team members discovered an even more serious problem. They were not only lost now, they had also been walking in circles, looking at the paint marks on the trees that they had just made themselves, along with the fatigue gradually setting in. A ripple finally appeared in their hearts. But they knew that at this moment, the most important thing was not those strange thoughts, but how to deal with the discomfort their bodies were experiencing. After being in a low-temperature environment for so long, fortunately, although the thick fog remained, the rain had become a little lighter. So the 4 found a spot that could barely shelter them from and decided to rest for a while, also seeing whether the thick fog would disperse. About 20 minutes later, the thick fog still had not dispersed, but the chill coming from their bodies was getting stronger and stronger. In the end, the team leader decided to look around nearby to see if he could find some dry firewood and also check whether the RTK had a signal. Before leaving, he specifically reminded the team members that they must not fall asleep. But as the team leader's figure disappeared into the darkness, this forest also became quiet forever. By the afternoon of November 14th, the people waiting at the foot of the mountain still had not seen the 4 team members return, and they could not contact the 4 of them. So they began calling the police for help. But because it had started raining at the foot of the mountain, it had also started raining at the foot of the mountain, and there were not enough people. So conditions were unsuitable for entering the mountain to search and rescue. Forest police and local villagers, totaling more than 20 people, and searched for plot number 6,000. On the way, they found the shelter built by the 4 people, as well as traces of chopped firewood. But they did not find the 4 people. From November 16th to 20, the Rescue Command Center expanded the search area, and the number of rescue personnel increased to more than 1,000. A large-scale search and rescue operation began. But due to the special nature of Ailao Mountain, the rescue operation was far from as smooth as imagined. Over 4 days, rescuers only found clues in different places by the 4 team members, such as cigarette butts, a machete, shelters, raincoats, and paint marks. On November 21st, the bodies of 3 geological team members with smiles were found 1.8 kilometers from the search team's number 2 campsite. On November 22nd, after further searching, the body of the last team member was found more than 100 meters away from where the other 3 died. At this point, the 8-day search and rescue had involved professional rescue personnel, local officials, and members of the public, with more than 2,000 person times in total, and came to an end. Of course, because there were no survivors in this incident. Many details about the 4 team members were inferred from clues found during the rescue process. But what can be confirmed is that the cause of death of the 4 team members was hypothermia. In fact, it was not only the 4 team during the rescue, because of continuous many rescuers also experienced the difference
hypothermia.
was that compared with the 4
They
team
were
members,
fortunate
to have strong logistical support. And the reason the 4 team members got lost was also because of heavy fog, heavy rain, and magnetic field disturbance. It was not, as rumors online
anything
claimed, supernatural or mysterious.
What we must
understand is this: never underestimate the power
Even
of
the
nature.
most
Professional team and the most advanced equipment may be vulnerable in the face of extreme natural environments. Field operations must establish multiple redundant safety systems. The 4 team members used their lives to teach us a heavy lesson while paying tribute to them. We also hope that such a tragedy will never happen again.